In the frozen heart of occupied Poland, a place was built where human life was reduced to ash and numbers. Its name became synonymous with the depths of human cruelty. Behind its gates, more than 1 million souls vanished, their screams absorbed by the snow and smoke. But how did a simple Polish town become the centerpiece of genocide? And who turned an ordinary camp into the deadliest machine of death the world has ever known? In the spring of 1940, Heinrich Himmler, the head of the SS and one of Adolf Hitler's most trusted subordinates, personally issued the command to establish a new concentration camp in southern Poland. The Nazis had already overrun the country, and Poland's prisons were overflowing with resistance members, intellectuals, and anyone deemed a threat to German rule. Himmler wanted a solution, a place that could hold thousands, instill terror, and eventually serve the Reich's larger ambitions. A reconnaissance team scouted the region and found a site near the town of Oświęcim, about 30 miles west of Kraków. It had an old Polish army barracks, railway connections, and enough isolation to keep its secrets hidden. Himmler gave the order, transform Oświęcim into Auschwitz, the first concentration camp on Polish soil. By May 1940, the first prisoners arrived, 30 German criminals sent from Dachau. Their role was not punishment, but instruction. They would serve as kapos, enforcers for the SS, teaching incoming prisoners how to obey, suffer, and die. Shortly afterward, Rudolf Höss was appointed commandant. Höss, a man of strict discipline and unwavering loyalty to the SS, accepted the position with bureaucratic calm. His meticulous nature and belief in obedience over morality made him the perfect architect for what was to come. The camp's early purpose was to imprison Polish political dissidents, priests, intellectuals, and members of the underground resistance. On June 14, 1940, the first major transport arrived, 728 Polish prisoners from Tarnów. Each man was stripped of his name and assigned a number, tattooed on his arm. It was the first step in the Nazi process of dehumanization, identity replaced by digits. Initially, Auschwitz was small. Barbed wire surrounded a handful of brick buildings. Prisoners slept on straw, standing roll calls in the bitter Polish weather. But Himmler had larger plans. In March 1941, during a personal inspection, he ordered a massive expansion. He envisioned a facility capable of holding 30,000 prisoners, with new sections to serve the economic and ideological goals of the Reich. What began as a prison was about to evolve into a world of unimaginable cruelty. By 1942, the Nazi regime had formalized the final solution to the Jewish question. The goal was clear: the complete extermination of Europe's Jewish population. The killing centers already in operation, like Chelmno and Belzec, were effective but limited. Auschwitz, with its strategic location and rail access, would become the ultimate death factory. The complex expanded into 3 main camps: Auschwitz, the original site and administrative center; Auschwitz II Birkenau, built 2 miles away to serve as a vast extermination and forced labor facility; and Auschwitz III Monowitz, an industrial subcamp linked to the German chemical conglomerate IG Farben. Birkenau, or Brzezinka in Polish, was designed for one purpose: mass murder. Its construction began in October 1941, using Soviet prisoners of war as slave labor. Few survived long enough to see it completed. The design was methodical. 4 crematoria, each with underground gas chambers, were built to operate continuously. Train tracks ran directly into the camp, delivering victims to their deaths with chilling efficiency. By the spring of 1942, the first gas chamber was operational. The earliest killings at Auschwitz had used bullets and injections of phenol to the heart, methods too slow and psychologically taxing for the SS. But a new solution emerged: Zyklon B, a cyanide-based pesticide. SS doctors had tested it on Soviet POWs in the basement of Block 11, the so-called death block. The results were horrifying and effective. Within minutes, everyone in the sealed chamber was dead. What began as experimentation soon became industrialized extermination. Trains began to arrive daily from across occupied Europe: Hungary, France, the Netherlands, Greece, Italy, and beyond. Whole communities were uprooted, told they were being resettled to work camps in the east. Most never knew the truth. When the trains reached the ramp at Birkenau, SS officers stood waiting, clipboard in hand, cigarette in mouth, indifferent to the chaos around them. Families were torn apart in seconds, men to one side, women and children to the other. At the head of these selections stood figures like Dr. Josef Mengele, the camp's most infamous physician. With a casual flick of his wrist, he decided life or death, a gesture that became the difference between forced labor or immediate execution. Those deemed unfit were told they were going to shower and delouse. They walked quietly, clutching their children, carrying bundles of clothing and hope. Inside the gas chambers, the illusion continued. Fake shower heads lined the ceiling. Then the doors sealed, and SS men dropped the Zyklon B pellets through vents. Screams filled the air for a few minutes, then silence. The ventilation fans whirred, the doors opened, and prisoners assigned to the Sonderkommando, themselves doomed to die later, began the gruesome task of removing the bodies. Gold teeth were pulled, hair was cut, and corpses were dragged to the crematoria. Everything was taken. The Nazis called it recycling. It's estimated that at the height of its operation, Auschwitz could kill 6,000 people per day. The smoke never stopped rising. Life for those not sent to the gas chambers was scarcely better. Prisoners endured starvation, exhaustion, disease, and constant brutality. The daily roll call, appel, began before sunrise and could last for hours, even in freezing snow. Anyone who collapsed was beaten or shot. Work assignments ranged from back-breaking labor in the quarries to constructing new barracks or digging mass graves. At Auschwitz III-Monowitz, the IG Farben company exploited prisoners for the production of synthetic rubber and fuel. The corporation paid the SS a daily rate per prisoner, and when the workers became too weak, they were sent to Birkenau to be killed. Auschwitz was not only a death camp, it was a business. The SS established warehouses called Canada, named after the prisoners' myth of a land of endless abundance. Inside were mountains of belongings, suitcases, clothing, shoes, and children's toys, all stolen from the dead. These were sorted and shipped back to Germany. Among the prisoners, despair was constant, but resistance flickered. Secret networks formed to pass information to the outside world. One of the most extraordinary stories is that of Witold Pilecki, a Polish army officer who deliberately got himself captured and sent to Auschwitz in 1940. Inside, he organized resistance groups, documented Nazi crimes, and managed to send detailed reports through smuggled messages. His warnings reached the Polish underground and eventually the Allies, but they were dismissed as impossible exaggerations. No one believed that such systematic slaughter could exist. As the camp expanded, so did its horrors. SS doctors like Mengele and Karl Klauberg performed medical experiments, sterilization trials, injections of chemicals, exposure to infectious diseases. Children were subjects of genetic research, especially twins. One twin would be murdered, so the other could be dissected. The cruelty had no purpose beyond ideology and curiosity. Human suffering became data. By 1943, the killing process was streamlined. Transports arrived almost daily. Birkenau's crematoria burned around the clock, and ash from the bodies was dumped into nearby ponds and fields. The largest wave of killings came in 1944, during the destruction of Hungary's Jewish population. In just 8 weeks, over 430,000 Hungarian Jews were deported to Auschwitz. The railway line ran directly into the gas chambers. Trains arrived day and night. The sky over Birkenau glowed red from the fires. The stench was unbearable, even for the SS, but orders were orders. By late 1944, the war was turning. The Red Army was pushing westward, liberating camp after camp. Himmler ordered the destruction of evidence at Auschwitz. Crematoria were dismantled, records burned, and mass graves exhumed. Thousands of prisoners were forced on death marches, walking hundreds of kilometers toward camps deeper inside Germany. Anyone who stumbled was shot. Snow-covered roads became littered with corpses. On January 27, 1945, Soviet forces of the 61st Army entered Auschwitz. What they found was beyond comprehension. Piles of bodies, half-burned documents, warehouses full of human belongings, and 7,000 survivors, skeletal and barely alive. Many of them could no longer walk. Some were children who had been hidden by other prisoners. The liberators had no words. Even hardened soldiers were shaken to tears. After the liberation, the full scale of the horror became undeniable. Over 1.1 million people had been murdered at Auschwitz, 90% of them Jews, along with Poles, Roma, Soviet POWs, and others deemed undesirable. At the Nuremberg trials, Auschwitz was a centerpiece of evidence for Nazi crimes. Rudolf Höss testified in chilling detail, describing the camp's operations with bureaucratic detachment. He claimed he was only following orders. He was hanged at Auschwitz in 1947, his body buried near the crematorium. Other SS officers escaped. Mengele fled to South America, living under false names until his death in 1979. Many lower-ranking guards melted back into civilian life, unpunished. But even justice could not erase what happened. In the years that followed, Auschwitz became a memorial and museum, a symbol of humanity's capacity for evil and endurance. The original barracks still stand, preserved as they were. The gas chambers remain silent. Visitors walk through the infamous gate inscribed with the lie, Arbeit macht frei, work sets you free. The words mock every step taken beneath them. Survivors like Primo Levi, Elie Wiesel, and Viktor Frankl gave the world their testimonies, ensuring that the memory of Auschwitz would outlive the perpetrators. Levi wrote that Auschwitz is outside of us, but it is all around us. It was not an aberration of history. It was a warning, because Auschwitz was not created by monsters. It was built by people, engineers, Doctors, accountants, and soldiers, all working together, all obeying orders, all believing they were doing their duty. That is the most haunting truth of all. Evil does not begin with hatred. It begins with obedience. And Auschwitz stands as the proof. When the gates of Auschwitz finally closed, the world could no longer deny what had been done in its name. Over 1 million innocent lives were extinguished in the smoke of its chimneys, not by savages, but by an advanced, educated nation that chose cruelty over conscience. The camp remains, frozen in time, a silent witness to what happens when humanity surrenders its morality to ideology. Every brick, every rail, every photograph whispers a single message: never again. If this story moved you, share it, so that the voices silenced by ash can still be heard. Subscribe for more deep explorations of history's darkest truths, and remember, those who forget the past are destined to repeat it.